Alright guys, uh, what I'm gonna do today, let's get updated on this stuff. So yesterday I had done a lot of talking about the game design stuff, organizing what needs to be done. So let me update this to-do list, and we can get started with actually continuing going on with that game design stuff. And, oh, that's what I was going to do. I was going to write what bots I want to make for Twitch. I was going to do it before this, but you know, since I'm streaming, might as well do it here. Bum, 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 ba-dum, 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 bum. Okay. Open up Discord too. Let's see. Streaming. Okay, so let me do that. Let's see. I have go to my other board. This one. And go away. Come on. And so see, I already have it. So welcome bot for Twitch. Welcome viewers with a Woody welcome. Maybe have a RPG or game fun fact. Dang, I already had myself and figured things out. Because at least the welcome bot would like better tell me who's in the stream, so I can see who's watching and who's not. And so, okay, I already have it, so I don't need to do that. Let me go back to my other board and go over this games concepts 2. So this will be the second week of stuff, and just updates of what I've done. Focus of the game and game style. So we are going into this stuff now. Need to have decided to go with RPG. Yep, RPG adventure game. Lots of quests and whatnot. Discuss more general ideas. Yep, we still need to go over this. Features, game mechanics we like in the game. What are the major features, game mechanics? So there are battles. Are there battles? Story level. So okay, this kind of goes over a lot of things, and then what makes the game unique. Still haven't gone over that. So we're still working on this game concept idea. Then we can go over like additional artwork that may be needed, story stuff, and possibly marketing. Another ticket would be ticket card. Could be plans for conventions and demos. me just do this real quick. So I started doing this, talking about this yesterday, and are the plans for development and creating demos for conventions and whatnot, or hosting public betas, alphas, betas for early testing. So we'll define this as well. I've kind of defined it already, but we can get something a little bit more specific. So let me go to my desktop. Actually, I'm already in desktop. Here I've got ignore that stuff. RPG games, maker games. See Twitch. Okay. Let's see. Is there anything outstanding? I'm on the alpha branch. Cool. And I guess every week I'll probably just merge things into the master branch. And so this is just still alpha. I can probably name it like alpha week 2 until we get alpha 1 out, alpha 2 out, and so forth. So, let's see. So, game design, and let's see. I want to open. Oh, that's right. I didn't know how to do this before. Let me look it up real quick. Let's see. What is it? Use terminal. Open. Go on view then. How do I open it? From terminal? Use open MD file from terminal, right? Open file. Sometimes it takes too much work to do search for simple things. See, it's dash A, and then use Xcode, and it should be game design document. And actually, I probably could have just used the terminal to find, like, look at the manual. Let's see, go open, help, I think. Opens with specified application, opens with. So here's an easy way, so just help. Oh, that's not it, I guess. But here's a way opens, so opens with text edit, opens with default text editor, It does a few different things. Okay, move this over here. And you can see here's the MD, kind of like better formats the document, and I think so. It doesn't show like everything because this could be better formatted, but I can view this in GitHub here. Go GitHub. This project. Where is it? Gosh. And as long as I'm on alpha, because one's got the updated documentation, you can just click on game design doc. You can see has a little bit of that formatting here, a link, and so where's that link? So good stuff. There's other ways, other things I can do here. But so let's go into more, just add more to this document. Okay. Define the art style game theme. Let's give some options here to kind of figure this out. Is it futuristic? On like off-world planet. Let's spell. Unknown planet. Underworld, something like that. Maybe it's in hell or heaven, right? Maybe it's some like water planet, right? Water planet. Or it's in space. So coming up with some kind of theme. And then finding artwork and references for this kind of theme that we want as part of like the to-do list. I don't know. I think a lot of the artwork that I have already is for like a fantasy-esque type game. So my choice, and again I can add this to the Discord and see who joins in. My choice would be for fantasy or some kind of space fantasy. I don't mind doing that. You know, is the theme also like you can have like other themes like post-apocalyptic, or is it like pre-technology? Steampunk is like another thing. So there's a lot of choices we can go with, and this kind of like depicts the art style we're going with, uh, that we move forward with, right? Because that, if it's pre-technology, how far back do we go? No TVs, no radios. Is it medieval times? What era is it? So we can like do that as well. Um, define the era of the game, and maybe if we go with maybe samurais, if we go with like a Japanese culture, um, maybe define culture as well. Um, Not sure. So, I mean, before I decide like a theme, I want to get more people's inputs on it. But, if we don't figure that out by the end of next week, then I'm just going to make the decision. Um, and most likely we'll end up with like maybe a space fantasy game where you can travel between worlds. Kind of like can get like something similar to like Mass Effect, um, where you travel different worlds, and so this can kind of lead into different aspects, or maybe we go with like a dimension type game. Um, or yeah, this kind is kind of like a cheap way to do things. If we have like a dimension uh, jump type theme, so every planet has a different theme to it. So you start off the game in maybe a very advanced technology world, and then you jump to another world, and all of a sudden that world's post-apocalyptic. Then you jump to another world, or dimension. I'll say worlds 2 or universe, world, whatever it may be. Um, and I'll put this as its own separate thing. This can get tricky because then now you're changing the artwork all the time. And so if we push out chapters, say, okay, hey, this is the steampunk world, go play it, check it out. It's got these types of quests, side quests, these types of monsters. Then you go push out another planet or world, and that is the water planet. And so you can have the same main characters and some of the same NPCs, but like the monsters would be completely different. The enemies would be completely different. Um, Story would change depending on like where they're going. Um, but that could be something. Yeah, so a water planet, then the next can be steampunk. Um, this could allow us to, what's it called? Provide large chapters for release. We publish the game. Right. And so, in this sense, then we would have to determine what those themes are. Like, what are we going to start with? And in that sense, I go back to my decisions, which would be, hey, space fantasy. I think a space fantasy game would be cool, where you have medieval characters or fantasy-esque characters. They just travel through space, and maybe their whole world is just on their ship. So it may not be like planet-sized ship, but it's like a city-sized ship. And I'll just stick with space fantasy because I keep going with it. Ship that, and that is the player's world. So they quest throughout their world ship. For the main quest, for main and side quests. Then they possibly can determine where the ship goes, right? If it's just floating in space, instead of so that could be something cool. And in that space fantasy, like what could there be? So actually, I'll define my choice here. You can have like, another one could be like pirates. So now you have space pirates. Whatever the theme may be, zombies. Maybe everyone plays as a zombie. Could be a nightmarish type of theme. I'm just gonna write a bunch of ideas. Dreamscape, whatever it may be. This kind of goes into story a little bit, but where lives city side ship. So that is the player's world. Quest throughout the ship. So there's not really much details here about what is a space fantasy, other than like they're in space. So let's define this a little bit more. What is a space fantasy game? So fantasy being magical world, right? It's magical place. Strange beasts like dragons. There's magic, but not technology. So, which is weird because they're in space, right? So there has to be some kind of technology, or it's just magic. It's magically driven. how should I say, like, no technology as in, not sure. Oh, hey, how's it going? Uh, so, yeah, I had just gone over some of this stuff was writing up yesterday, trying to get some clear ideas of um, games, uh, the game itself. So we're gonna just go over that some more, and I was just kind of thinking of like if if uh, if we got more people involved, kind of deciding what the game theme might be, um, because we kind of got off track last week with what it's defining the game and what the game's going to be, um, and just went into like classes, and so I wasn't sure. We didn't really define like what the theme was going to be because we were just talking about that stuff. Okay, cool, cool. Yeah, so kind of defining what a space fantasy is. Um, I'm thinking it's magical world, um, and trying to say, okay, well, there's no technology, um, but like, what does that mean? Is there Are there going to be guns? Do we use guns in this space? Are there vehicles? I mean, it's in space, so I feel like not saying there's no technology is going to kind of shoot itself in the foot. So trying to define what space fantasy is. Right, yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to think about, because we got to kind of define what it is, because some of the other themes I was talking about are all listed here, and there's the option where they can just go from different worlds, different universes, whatever it may be, and then we introduce like different themes. But no matter what, we're gonna start with some theme. Um, okay, let's see. Um, Maybe I should just Google it, see what Google says. Fantasy games. Let's see. This. Hmm. Fantasy games. Come on, this should be. Someone's gotta have like a good description of it. Hmm. I like how this is the description of fantasy. Uh, yeah, I mean, I guess that's really it. It's like this magical world where have different things, strange beasts, whatnot. I'll just leave this description here. Yeah, I wish I had some more definition here. Like, at least start talking about guidelines and restrictions, like talking about what it's not. I guess it isn't. It's not steampunk, right? And so, okay, I guess we can move on from here until like we start come out with like clear idea. I mean, I guess we all have like a good idea of what fantasy is, whether or not we want to have, what kind of weapons do we want in the world. We can talk about that. You know, like, are there guns? Maybe. Is it like a medieval style? I think we had talked about that before, where it's not. We don't want to stick to that style. We could start introducing like other weapons. I guess we'll just leave it open. Um, yeah, so go with something that isn't the traditional medieval setting. Something more, yeah, fantasy. Um, okay, yeah, I guess we'll come back to that. We can talk about some other things. Let's see. So to go over some of the stuff I had written yesterday. Um, what kind of art style? We're definitely like going with 2D, and there's some documentation about how we can create art for RPG Maker, MV specifically, because some things do change between the software. So I think VX Ace was 32 by 32 character sizes, and MV is 48 by 48. But I think mostly everything's is built the same way. So yesterday's video kind of talked about that, and this RPG Maker documentation is part of the game tool, the game engine itself. Uh, so if we wanted to read that more, you would have to have RPG Maker. But there's also this website that has documentation on the JavaScript of things. So all the classes and coding of the project, which we probably will get into, or at least do some customization. I may do it on the stream, or I may not. My JavaScript's rusty, but it should be good. Then talking about the battle system, whether it should be turn-based or side view. I don't care either way. Not sure what you think, which you would prefer if it's, I said side view, but no, it's like, we want it to be turn-based, but side view, or I guess, I don't know what the other view is called, front view. This would be like the Pokemon style, where you have your characters on your side, you can see all their health on your side, and then the enemies are further away in like an environment setting. Rather than a side view would be, you see all the characters facing each other, left to right, and they're all sitting in this world. I prefer side view myself, because you can put everyone in a setting, and you can fit them in that setting pretty nicely, and create a better like organized background. So that's got my votes. I think we definitely want to have dungeons, or I think if the dungeons are, is that going to be like part of the main quest, or that's something that they just do to grind to level up? let's see. Because you can treat this like a game where, okay, is it all about leveling up, or is it about the story? And we haven't really defined that. Because if it's about, you know, it's more about, okay, getting those higher levels, about defeating bosses in dungeons, um, or is the dungeon just a means to level up so you can continue on with the story? Um, so we need to define the purpose. Um, okay, so we can do that. That sounds good. So, defeating dungeons advances story. So you can't really do much until you defeat a dungeon. So we can do that. Oops. Where'd it go? So turn-based, and then we'll say side view. Yeah. Okay. All right. So other things for the battle system. So we want turn-based. What else? How else can we define this battle system? Is there any like unique features that should be there? Like maybe like cinematic actions, like cinematic like large attack moves, right? I'm trying to think how to word that. Right, yeah, so I think that comes into like the player stats. Um, for sure. I'll write that down too. It is because I definitely think it should be to keep on with the D&D style. Should use like initiative uh, battles. And this provides quick actions by player to ambush. And I guess that's another thing we can go with. So for the battle system, like how do we do encounters? Do we see monsters and we just like run up to them, or do they see? Can they see us and run into us? So do monsters engage with players? I'm assuming yes, because we're going to be able to. They're going to be able to ambush us as well. So if we enter a room, we can get immediately ambushed. So, and engage combat. So yeah. What else? So with the initiative, this player and monsters speed affects initiative. Okay, so let's see. What else can there be? What else would define like this battle system? So yeah, monsters can engage them. Um, could there be like traps? Do we want traps and that engages combat? Um, or let's see, or traps also deal damage to player characters. Um, so like this is typical for like RPG games that if you're fighting through like some kind of bog or poisonous swamp, um, as you travel through it, you're taking damage the whole time, and then you have to also fight other monsters while you're in there, and that entire time you're taking damage. Uh, so, like, I guess poisonous um, areas and deal damage to character. And this can go the other way as well. I guess this could be like environments. Because maybe, and then again, this only continues to add to the game to make the game larger and more data to the game is and okay, so I was talking about game design, and I was thinking as I was planning things, it's like we can talk about whatever we want to have in here, and eventually I will start cutting things out, and that's to start planning things and say, okay, what's going to be part of Alpha 1, what's going to be part of Alpha 2, what's going to be in Beta 1, what's going to be in Beta 2, to start defining those things. So we can put whatever we want in here for what we want in the game, and to kind of make sure that we actually create something, start defining those goals afterwards. So let's see. So you can have environment buffs, and debuffs. And from here we'll just determine like what we'll cut or postpone, I would say, because eventually we would want everything here. What else with the battle system? I think we did talk about having area effects, so damage, attacks, I should say attacks. Well, okay. Yep. Okay. Something else, and again, I need to stop like adding things. Are there going to be like combo moves that they can have? No, I'd say probably not. Just to make things a little bit simpler instead of continuing to add things to the game. Yeah, and if there's ever like on the posting this in the Discord channel, if you end up coming with more ideas, just comment in the Discord channel too and say, hey, you know what I thought about this game design idea, and just put in the discussion board, and it can be updated on the doc as well, because you know, if there is some kind of unique feature that we want to have for the for the battle system, we should definitely add it. Just like the cinematic, like large moves, if you make like the killing blow, so this could be like killing blows to larger effects, special effects, or movies, however you want to think about it. And maybe this only goes for bosses or something. Right, because that kind of gives it a little bit extra special emphasis on, like, okay, people want to kill more bosses because, you know, they want to see that cool animations. And again, like, this would all have to be made. So definitely there's going to be a lot of artwork. And like discussing that, okay, if we do like world jumping, involves a lot of work too. So being able to like prioritize what we want first to display first versus like having everything. For sure. Let's see. Okay. I think that covers battle systems pretty well. You know, you can actually say fight one or many enemies, and we can kind of define like maybe there's only going to be a max of 8 enemies anytime, so we just don't clutter the screen. We can change this. Maybe it's like max. I guess we can define. Actually, yeah, that's the next session. Bosses. Because we can define, okay, what kind of abilities do we want bosses to have as they hit like certain health? Do they change their fighting style and whatnot? So since we're talking about it now, let's go over some boss stuff. So, do they change fighting styles as they are weakened? And do they summon minions to help fight? Heroes, I guess. So this could be a variety of things, and this doesn't have to just pertain to dungeon monsters. This could be other bosses. Would we have other skirmishes in like the city? We can also define that as well. Say battles can occur in towns, cities, dungeons, and that kind of could add to like the story as well. Okay, so do we want anything unique for bosses? I think changing the fighting style is always a good way to kind of show a unique kind of fighting mechanic in the game for RPGs. Because if you're fighting, like, you have your whole party with you, you've got to be able to adjust, and a lot of people may not be ready for that, for those different kinds of advancements. So I definitely think we should have this, and you know, we can define that per monster, per boss. And is based on original fighting style. So we can have what's it called? They have maybe you have a giant ogre who is just fighting with a club, right? But as he hits like half health, he goes into a rage, and this causes him to, like, maybe it starts doing him, like, gives him a 25% buff in his damage, right? So now he's doing more damage than previously, and that can be just throw a lot of characters off because they think they're ready for this boss monster, and then it looks like they're winning, and then all of a sudden turns the tables on them. Maybe we can have like another example would be some kind of like wizard they're fighting, or some magical creature. That when it hits half health, it gets like a certain type of regen, or it uses a shield and summons more monsters. Maybe summons more monsters to aid, or throws up a shield to block attacks. So there could be other things, like depending on like how we have characters. Also use, like, since we talked about a dodge, maybe some bosses could eventually learn how to dodge, which would be create unique fighting styles for each boss and a lot of different monsters that are there. So and then again, like, depending on how the planning goes for this, we'd cut down, like, okay, well, we talked about having 10 bosses. Each boss does this, this, and that. But for Alpha 1, we're just going to focus on making 3 bosses, or 2 bosses, whatever it may be. So for these ideas, definitely add it to the Discord. You can start adding this. Maybe I can have a let's see. This would be part of like the character design, and so we can start talking about, okay, you know, we have one boss, or whatever his name may be, and his fighting style is this. I'm thinking his health should be this, and he doesn't use magic. Maybe he has magic resistance. So as more people come into the game, or into this community development, that they can start pitching their ideas, and they would be able to pitch their ideas here. And so if you have any ideas for a character, definitely throw it in here, and I'll put that into the chat. Oops, right here. Bosses for, and maybe the template could be, I don't know, I need to set this up a little bit differently. Maybe I can just type it here real quick and then just paste it in. So let me make that template. So monster name, and then we'll say just monster template. Monster name, maybe like monster level, monster difficulty, skills, stats, that he has. I'll just say health. Yeah, just say stats. People can just say magic, mana, speed, and so should just define all this real quick. Say with, I don't know what to call that other thing, to fighting style, I should say. Description. Does fighting style change? Hopefully my typing's not too loud. I'm not actually sure. I don't think it is too loud when I watch the other videos. So let's see. Okay. Well, what else is there? What was the other? Let's see. That's it. Oops. Okay. Let's see. Copy this. So that we have the same kind of data between monsters and characters. So. Yeah, I'll just leave that because it's an example. So let me copy this and just paste this into. Oh, I missed it. Dang it. Okay. Where is it? Yes. Okay. Because at least, you know, we can have people pitching ideas throughout the week rather than just one at a time, like us talking about it during the stream. So that's what I want people to start doing more. Is like in your spare time, just if you have ideas, throw them out here, and then we can go over those ideas during the stream, so that we keep the things moving along. So that's good. Maybe I'll make a new document about this for all the monsters we have. Let's see, where am I? Okay, yeah. So I'll make it here. Monster template. And then open that one. And then just paste that there. Save that. Alright. Cool. So go away, so I don't need you anymore. Any monsters. I guess it's all the same thing. Actually, maybe we'll talk about NPCs. Yeah. Okay. Um, so yeah, if you have any ideas, go ahead and just throw them into the Discord chat. NPCs, I mean, we should have a variety of them, and I'll just list a few, like shopkeep, maybe a blacksmith, um, random citizens, and I mean, this is going to be mostly like story based and uh, world based, so I mean, we'll come up with them whenever. I don't think this is like a big thing that we need to go into too much in detail about. Okay, so the leveling system, I wrote this up yesterday and was thinking, okay, it's kind of like what we went over. So the way leveling works is you can gain it from experience from fights. You can gain experience in different aspects of the character. So if there's different stats, if we treat it more like D&D, um, we can have strength, dexterity, charisma, and say maybe story decisions affect your charisma or like your actions in town. Maybe we allow you to kill NPCs and attack towns. Um, that would affect your maybe your charisma, and so people get scared of you as you enter new towns. Um, and we'll see how that goes, or maybe wanted posters start being posted about you. This gets into a real detailed type of gameplay and whether or not we want to have that. Um, not really sure yet. Um, and maybe there's different ways. And again, like I'm not 100% sure on doing this kind of specific kind of thing. Maybe we just always just gain experience from fights rather than having these other things here. But it was just something I wrote up. So maybe. Uh, um, because that kind of gets into more of a D&D-esque type of thing. So I'm not sure if this can get complicated, but a lot of this can get complicated. Uh, so if there's other ways that you think that we should level up other than just from fights, um, then we can add that in. Skills we talked about before, so just going over this again. Skills would be, oh, sorry. Um, so you get skills based on your class, right? And as characters level up, points are given, and players can actually allocate these to different skills. Um, I think that covers most of what we want for skills. Um, so I think the level system's pretty good. At least it's defined. I don't think there's any questions here. Um, if you have any questions about like how the level system works, just message me. Uh, but I think this covers it. I don't think it needs to be explained anymore. Um, and we're talking about, as we talk about like other NPC characters, do they level up with you if you have a party? Because that's kind of like usually the expectation is either you travel by yourself or you travel with like a small party, and does that party level up with you? Um, and do you get characters at different levels? Uh, they should follow the same leveling uh, process. Mm, I'll probably go for another like half hour talking about some more game design stuff here. At least, you know, once we go through all of this one more this time, start pitching ideas throughout the week um, to actually start filling out what the game's going to be. But I think this gives us a good idea of what we want. So, do we want the characters to be, or the player to be able to make their own character? Yes or no? This isn't in there. As far as I know, there isn't a way to generate a player to generate their character in game. We would have to program that in. So most likely there won't be, but that would be cool to have in like the future. Um, so and then part of the character generator would be you'd be able to pick a race and whatnot. So what we need to have is we'll have to have presets. So if there's no custom character generator, I'll say no custom generator. But what we're going to have is a character selection screen, right? So no character generator, but character selection. And so we'll have like a good size of like selection where they can pick a race of what they want to look like. So what they should look like. I'll just say character. So they pick a race. We can get into. I mean, we can make a more custom selector and have like a huge collection of characters. I mean, of course, when we first start it, we'll probably just have like just a few, and then like those can be like human with brown hair, green hair, purple hair, whatever. Or it can be like an elf with the same kind of settings, brown hair, purple hair. And so we can create an array of different characters that the player can choose from. And this is just presets that they can use, and that becomes their character. And then again, so maybe we have them, if they're going to be, maybe they should pick a class first, right? And then they can pick a look afterwards. So right, and then depending on like what race they pick, that defines their look. But then we would have a human knight, human wizard, human cleric, and they can pick those looks. But you can see how already, just with the character selection, they already have a huge variety of. We already have to have a lot of different artwork for this game. And again, since we're just going to start with Knight, Wizard, Cleric, again, we can start defining these things. We can start adding more. And again, like, feel free to post these in the Discord, and so we can have those and just add them to the documentation. And then whenever we decide to, okay, well, we need to start planning these things, we can start saying, okay, well, we really want to have a wizard, or we want to have a monk, or we want to have some ranger, and we have that selection to choose from that we can further start making artwork from and either define it a little bit more clearly. So. And so when I'm just going to type this in the chat too. Yeah. So, and again, so like we can have like a huge list of game documentation where it's just countless classes, races, skills, and people can just continue to add to this list. And when we start defining the game and say, okay, well, what are we going to work on first? Someone's really went all out and really defined what skills the knight should have. They went from level 1 to level 50, and they came out with all these things. Let's review that, modify it however we want, and come up with something solid. And then say, okay, well, since the knights, we've really defined what a knight is from level 1 to 50, let's make that one. So that's going to go in Alpha 1. But then someone really wants to have wizard, but no one's defined what a wizard does, right? So it's like, well, if we really want to have a wizard in Alpha 1, then someone needs to go in and define what wizard is, what skills it gets throughout all the levels, and once that's been defined, again, we review it, make sure it fits into the game. We don't want wizards to just have shoot magic from giant swords. So we make sure everyone's happy with the wizard, and then we say, okay, well, we got another class, and now we can put that in Alpha 1. Or maybe it doesn't make it and say, okay, well, we'll put wizard in Alpha 2. And so that's how I want to get the community involved more, is through Discord. And so people can contribute to the game outside of the chat, or outside of the stream, right? And I'll post that in the Discord too. And then, well, what I had talked about yesterday, subclasses. Maybe we'll have like subclasses, which would be, maybe you get like, it maybe gives you extra skills. I couldn't think about it yesterday. I couldn't think of the word. And so maybe there's like how they want a subclass. And so this would be different than multi-classing, because like these are classes or skills that can be given to anybody, to any class. And so or general skills. So they don't have to be like anything specific to a character, but could be a new skill, general skill, like extra healing. So if you already have a cleric, maybe you want to pick an extra healing skill that just gives like a, these are going to be something real small. So it gives like maybe a 10% or 5% boost to healing spells, right? And so if you have this, whether you cast it or maybe it gets cast on your character, it gives you always get a 5% boost. And so these are, describe it as well, small skills that boost character stats, right? And the emphasis is on small, right? These aren't meant to replace other skills or benefit in multiclassing too much. These are just small buffs that really help the character in like little ways. And it could be, that every time they go into battle, the character gets a 5% boost in attack damage for one turn, or the first turn of the battle, right? So just little like miscellaneous things. And I'll just try to be as clear as I can here. And then multi-classing would go into them being able to get a whole new set of skills for a class, being able to pick up those skills and attribute those points. Okay, so when does this get unlocked? I would say maybe they can do it at any time. I'm not sure. So, what is it? I guess it can be done at any time. I would say past level 5 or can be open past level 5. Just so that the characters and the players can actually get used to the game before they start multi-classing. So they start putting points at multiple classes, maybe they won't be able to defeat certain bosses at the early game. So I think this, again, we cover. Trying to think of what else there is to talk about characters themselves. Like, is there unique things? And like decision making, I can go into the story. So maybe they do offer different decisions, and do they offer like potions? You say, hey, thanks for shopping here. Here's an extra potion for your travels. Not sure. Yeah, I think this covers characters. Let me see. So let's say main character. So yep, so pick a class, and I'll put that note here as well. Other developers can pick classes and races in Discord. Yep. And skills was up there, yep. And so buildings, yeah, I kind of just went over some general stuff. I mean, I think a lot of this will just be uh, defined as we make it. We don't really have to say, okay, well, every town has to have 5 houses, or it has to have a tavern. This is kind of like part of the level design. Um, and we can define like a starting set of what we want, but until we actually start working, we don't. I'm not 100% sure what we might want or need. So, and like what the weapons should be, like start defining those as well. And again, trying to get the community together to start making this game and say, hey, you know what, I want to see a long sword in this game. I want to see some kind of rune staff, and people can submit their own artwork and start submitting their stats with each weapon. Say, hey, you know what, this is going to give +1 damage, +3 magic damage, +3 magic, um, and so forth. Maybe they submit their own armor and say, hey, I want to have this armor piece in the game. And, you know, as people just generate artwork, we can just put it into the game, and it can go into any of the shops. And say, okay, well, this armor is going to give you +1 speed and +1 defense. So cool. We like it. It can be used by any class, or maybe it can only be used by wizards, because it gives gives you +1 magic or +2 magic, nothing else. So maybe it's something specific for wizards. We can all define that in the Discord. So let me add that here too. I'll make a new channel. Say weapons. I'll just say yeah, just weapons. Say weapons design. And then I'll add other discussions here as well. Armor designs. What else? What else did I say? Oh, general potion shops. General items. And so I can pin this as well, I think. Let's see. Pin. Yes. And so pin that, and so that everyone can actually see it. And I'll do the same thing for the weapon designs, create stats. And so people just start pitching ideas. So I'm fine with that. And you can pitch your own artwork too. It's cool. Same thing, so going to the story, and I'll probably end this in a bit. Actually, we can talk about story and narrative another time, because I can get in real depth. Because let's define what the game's going to be, and so still want to spend like another week talking about what the game's going to be, and then we can start planning things, getting things together. So some of the game expectations I was saying, talking about how the planning should work. And so Alpha 1, I'm expecting, okay, Alpha 1 should be 3 months from now. and I was talking about like beginning of March when we kind of put this together. So it ends June 1st. You know what should be in this, and so since we're still discussing like what the game should be, um, not we're not going to be able to define any of this stuff, but just saying okay, Alpha 1, Alpha 2 is going to be until September 1st, Beta 1's December 1st, and then you know what Beta 2 is only 2 months. It's ending February 1st because this is what we want to have in for Level Up Expo, right? So uh, demo for Level Up Expo 2021, right? So then we can have present a game, and again, like we can do more panels and say, hey, this is what we did over the course of the year, and again, like my previous panel, that's what it was all about, was making sure, seeing how I think indie development should go, because too often people just jump in and start trying to make a game without defining what they're trying to make and setting guidelines and planning. So many teams don't plan their development, and so what ends up happening is they want to do X, Y, Z, or A through Z, and all of a sudden 6 months go by and they've done a lot, but then none of it works together because they have a half working battle system, they have some story, they have one character made but then no monsters, or maybe they have 3 monsters but they have another level made up, but nothing's in that level. So there's no organization to actually make in a demo. And so a lot of this is about what's going to be in Alpha 1 is going to be this. And it's something that's going to be presentable. So every time we hit a milestone, that is something presentable. And so this kind of creates a guidelines as, okay, well, when we say all of a sudden we stop working on Alpha 1, and then nothing happens for the next 9 months, well, we can say, well, at least we have something presentable. We did 3 months of work, and we have this to show for it. You know, we stopped working on it, but we're going to pick it up again. And sometimes that happens, like where we only spent a few weeks on something, and now there's nothing presentable because we started making one character, started doing this, started doing that, and nothing came together. And of course, like if you're only going to be spending like a couple weeks on something, you're not going to get much done and not much to be presented, other than like maybe some concept art. But if we focus on like planning and trying to get something together for what we want for each phase, then at least we can kind of focus on making something presentable at each phase. So I would say, okay, so next week, I definitely I'm going to start adding my own stats and characters to the documentation, and I'll post it all in Discord to be discussed, such as weapons, and actually, let me see. Maybe I'll say that should be character designs, and then make another one for monster designs. Actually, since I posted this one, I'm gonna rename this one to like character designs. Actually, and then this would be so I'll go ahead and end it here. You guys can go ahead and leave whenever. I'm gonna just make a few channels, and I'll stay on if you guys want to discuss more things. Stat information. But again, I'll be back on Friday and go over more game design stuff. And I think by the end of next week, we should have a really good idea of what we want to make in the game, and and then the weeks after, start creating those characters, defining those stats for all the characters, the weapons, start talking about story, uh, getting the artwork, and start making some artwork if we want to. So that would be cool. So I'll see you guys Friday. So thanks for joining. I just wrote this and I'm writing it completely differently in this one. Um, monsters to use in use. I guess I could just type this in the channel too. What's up there? So, alright. Jumping off, guys. I'll see you guys Friday.